So, Pandora's box is the human heart, both metaphorically and physiologically. And so I've been sitting on this for a while because I was trying to, work out or let it come to me the best way of describing how the ion channel works and how the heart factors into it. Y'all, if y'all have been following me long enough, y'all know I've talked about the Paul trap and what I perceive at the heart, trying to understand exactly the mechanism in which that works. And so I'm going to turn this around because it's very interesting, especially for anybody who's a nerd like me that kind of nerds out over like the metaphysics. And so, anyways, so opening up the heart space. So I was doing some sitting on this, and this morning when I woke up, I had the, let's say, visuals of it coming through. And so it's all about amplitude. And we've talked about briefly about the heart producing ELF waves, or extremely low frequency radio waves, or radio frequency waves. And so the strength of the oscillating signal is the amplitude. And so that affects how far the signal travels and how well it can be received. Now, we've talked about the energy and the ability for it to be, let's say, move up the energy centers to be utilized. And we've talked about the ion channel as well. And I think, where is that? I have no idea. It's back here. And I'd shown y'all briefly how the ion channel in the cells of the human body look exactly like how the toroid field looks like around the human. And also, if you notice in the ion channel, there's this gate. And so I perceive that as also the heart. Okay, and I've talked about that being at the heart, the Paul trap, or what should be like the confined area for ions or electrons. And so amplitude it'll increase the strength of the electric fields and enhance trapping efficiency of ions and electrons the higher the amplitude. The lower the amplitude, it weakens the trapping potential and it leads to instability or loss of trapped ions. Now, what's interesting about this is when it comes to utilization of the ion field, ion channel, and the trap, it increases voltage, therefore it increases power of the toroidal field and what I perceive as the fourth density vehicle and the Merkaba ability to let's say, just expand gifts. We'll leave it at that for right now. And the higher the amplitude will decrease the penetration and interference from outside sources and the potential loss of the power generated by the ion channel. With a closed heart space, there will be lower amplitude, which is one weakening as far as trapping potential, but also leads to instability in the field and a greater degree of loss of those ions. So therefore, the interference can be greater from, let's say, other sources, other people. So when you develop a certain level of awareness and you stop giving away blindly and you understand the sovereignty and power that comes with love, increasing light capacity, and the mechanisms that go within that whole, let's say, feedback loop, you start working on that and working on the, let's say, tight junctures of your field. Well, anyways, how's that play into Pandora's box, and why is the heart the actual box? Well, this I've been sitting on since probably the fall because I have had this in my head, but trying to understand the maneuverings or the mechanisms in which that story applies has been tricky or elusive for me until now. And so let's start with the Greek. It's a Greek myth. It parallels exactly the Adam and Eve story, the fall and the temptations in the garden. So it starts out with Prometheus wants to, when he's designing man, give the protection of fire, not literal fire, the living flame, the living plasma fire to man, which is the DC current and thus the biofield, as a means of protection. Zeus told him no, that was in his instruction, and he went against it anyway, giving man the protection of fire. And in order to punish him, he did a couple of things, but the one we're going to focus on is Pandora. So he created or molded Pandora, which, by the way, was meant to look like Aphrodite or Venus, which we just talked about that yesterday, talking about the loss of power with venereal diseases and venality in the lower chakras, and the electron loss, which directly ties into this because it's talking about electron loss. And so how apropos that he named or molded her in the look and appearance of Aphrodite or Venus. And so after he molded Pandora and she married Prometheus, his brother, she was given a jar or box by Zeus and was told to never open it. It was meant to symbolize the temptation. Okay, same thing, same story with the garden and the temptation of the forbidden fruit. And what that represents, just like the tree of knowledge of good and evil, is free will. So out of her curiosity or free will, her free choice, she chose to open it. And when she opened it, she let out greed, envy, disease, lack, and death. Now, does that sound familiar from yesterday when we were talking about the primary miasms that began all the disease and illness that affected man? Again, also tying this back to Venus. Now, how does that apply to the heart space physiologically? So, whenever you have a higher amplitude and you're strengthening the fields, that means less interference, and the heart space is actually open flowing in the ion channel. When you have a closed heart space and you actually have a lower amplitude, it weakens the field. The field is what opens and loses the trapped ions or electrons. That loss of electron, that loss of charge, like we talked about with venality yesterday, and carnal and let's say lower mental and emotional impulses and lack of stewardship over those, that loss is what leads to the imbalances of disease, lack, envy, greed, and eventually death, because we were talking about voltage. And so to me, I just wanted to have a quick video, which I say quick, it's over 7 minutes, to explain, because it's becoming clearer, the picture as to how the heart works in the ability to springboard up the higher energy centers to penetrate intelligent infinity and to stabilize your field. I hope that makes sense. Of course, leave any questions in the comment section. Thanks.